Hello, I'm Nathaniel Wallace. This is my fourth speech for my TJC Speech class, and for the sake of the assignment, this is my audience, and I will get started once they sit down. Hello, I'm Nathaniel Wallace. I want you to imagine that you're someone living in medieval Europe. At this time, the Catholic Church is the primary source of power. As such, it's the dominant writer of the laws. You've been told that these laws are based off the Bible, a book written in Latin, but you know of nobody who can actually read Latin. Not that it would matter much, because only priests legally have the ability to read the Bible. So as a citizen at this time, you are forced to trust the priest for your understanding of the law. Now, we can all agree that this is a despicable abuse of power. Okay, now you're in America. The priests have been replaced by politicians who take the primary source of the law that you live under, the Constitution, and translate it for you, telling you what it really means. Now, if we can all agree that what the Catholic Church did in medieval Europe is wrong, why is it we accept what our politicians are doing today as being right? The sad thing is, we actually have the Constitution at our disposal. We have the ability to read the document that shapes and supports our day-to-day lives. We have at our fingertips the tools necessary to analyze and discern what the Constitution was originally and truly meant for. We don't need someone else to do that for us. Yet out of laziness, we choose not to use the resources that our freedoms still give us today. In this way, we are like children refusing to grow up, and thus we are like fools. Today, I want to focus primarily on one constitutional declaration that's being shaped for us today. What I'm talking about is our Second Amendment rights. My desire is to persuade you to become more aware of your Second Amendment rights and to be more aware of the lies being contrived to convince you to let go of those rights. This political climate, there are many who are using multiple strategies to achieve power. So it is essential that we all know what the Second Amendment says and its history, so that we are not swayed by political strategies. Now, what does the Second Amendment actually say? It says, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." What was the scene that gave this statement voice? The framers of the Constitution lived in the tension between the English monarchy and the American colonies. And the reason why the right to bear arms was so key for them is because England had tried to get around the laws that they had established to give their citizen rights when they tried to disarm the colonists prior to the Revolutionary War. The Founding Fathers saw the right to bear arms as a way to deter tyrannical rulership. The following quotes from the late 1700s convey the emphasis placed on the individual's rights to be armed. Thomas Jefferson, in the proposal for the Virginia Bill of Rights in 1776, said, "No free man shall be debarred, or refused, the use of arms." In the 1788 pamphlet Letters from the Federal Farmer, it says, "To preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them." In the Virginia Convention concerning the ratification of the federal Constitution, Patrick Henry is quoted as saying, "The great objective is that every man be armed." In the June 18, 1789 Federal Gazette, an article describing Madison's proposal for the Bill of Rights says, "The people are confirmed by the next article in their right to keep and bear their private arms." And then, as Glenn Reynolds points out in his A Critical Guide to the Second Amendment, Madison himself wrote that a regular army that threatened liberty would find itself opposed by a militia amounting to nearly 500,000 citizens with arms in their hands. Mr. Reynolds goes on to say that Madison contrasted the situation with America with that of the European governments, whom he described as afraid to trust the people with arms, and argued that the new federal government need not be feared because Americans possess the advantage of being armed. It seems quite clear that the Founding Fathers' intent was for the individual citizen to have the right to be armed. Yet, let's flash forward to our lifetime. In the year 2000, the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals said of the Second Amendment, "The Second Amendment is a right held by a state and does not protect the possession of a weapon by a private citizen." So, we're supposed to now accept that where it says rights of the people in the Second Amendment, that it was meant by the Founding Fathers for the state and not the individual? Does that match any of the things that I just quoted? Does that match the rest of the Constitution? The words rights of the people that are found in the First and Fourth Amendments are without doubt meant for the rights of the individual when it comes to freedom of speech and protection against unlawful search and seizure, not the states. So what justifies this twisting of truth? Well, we're told that if guns are restricted, then crime rate would go down because citizens would not have guns and therefore criminals would not be able to get their hands on guns. But do the numbers hold up this assertion? In 1996, Australia enacted their own gun ban in hopes of reducing their crime rate. But in the wake of this ban, a lot of people pointed out that the crime rate actually rose. To be more accurate, the crime rate just continued to rise. An article by the National Center of Policy Analysis states that in 2002, 5 years after the enactment of their gun ban, the Australian Bureau of Criminology acknowledged there is no correlation between gun control and the use of firearms in violent crime. The article goes on to point out that in 2006, murders committed with a gun was 16.3%, the highest it had ever been. Assaults rose 49.2%, and robberies 6.2%. Sexual assault increased 29.9%, and overall, Australia's violent crime rate rose 42.2%. In addition, here in the U.S., there are two interesting studies, one done by Lott and Mustard, and a follow-up study done by Bronner and Lott concerning the effect of shall-issue laws. A shall-issue law licensing system is one that requires authorities to provide a license to carry a gun to any and all applicants who meet specific criteria, such as proper training and stability of mind. This paper points out that according to Lott and Mustard, their findings, the statistics credit shall-issue licensing laws in a state with an 8.5 reduction of murder, 8.5% reduction of murder, 5% reduction of rape, and a 7% reduction of aggravated assault on average. To defend their first study against criticism, Lott joined with Bronner to do a new study. This study looked at whether or not there was a crime spillover into counties in bordering states, counties bordering the states that had shall-issue laws in neighboring states. What they found repeatedly was that murder increased in those counties 4.5%, in those counties rape increased 4.2%, and in those counties robberies increased 7.5%. They also found that the effect of this spillover started immediately after the shall-issue laws were enacted. And they found that in neighboring states, that those who had already enacted shall-issue laws had zero spillover effect. As these numbers show, restricting access to arms for your citizens does not decrease crime rate, while having an armed citizenry actually has the potential of lowering crime rate. Another consideration that needs to be brought to mind when it comes to an armed citizenry is that it has the potential to ward off warlike invasion. The Japanese Admiral Yamamoto is quoted as saying during World War II, "You cannot invade the mainland of the United States. There would be a rifle behind each blade of grass." So having an armed population has protected us in the past. Now the question must be asked, if restricting guns for your citizens has no effect on crime rate, and in fact, if you give your citizens the ability to arm themselves, you have the potential of lowering crime rate as well as the potential of lowering the chance of invasion, why restrict access to your citizens when it comes to arms? There's a simple answer. We're reaching a critical moment in our development as a nation where the family is no longer the base structure for authority. To make sure that we have our comforts, we're increasingly yielding our personal authority to the federal government. With the growing demands of a dependent populace, the federal government wishes to ensure obedience from its citizens by making it to where they are unable to resist submission. As I mentioned before, when the Founding Fathers wrote in the Second Amendment that the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, that this was a defense against tyranny. Where it says a militia, it is speaking of a militarized citizenship that actually has the ability to defend against threats from the outside as well as from the inside. Now, even though I've established that our Second Amendment rights, according to our Founding Fathers, were meant for the individual, not the state, and that the reasons put forth by our politicians to restrict our access to guns don't match the numbers, don't take my word for it. Go out and study it for yourself. Know what the Second Amendment says. Know the intent of the Founding Fathers. Know how this right affects society as a whole. If you don't go out and find this stuff out for yourself after listening to me, I'm just another one of those priests translating for you the law that you live under. Thank you.